Mouthwashing is that perfect example of a game living up to the hype and then some. Being blunt, it is one of the most enticing narratives in recent years that I've played. So many months after experiencing this game, I still think about the characters, themes, messaging, and events that haunt the player's experience. It's an example of why I love the video game medium. It perfectly lays out an impeccable story that can be interacted with. It's a creativity of something that so rightfully disturbs you to the core. It's an amazing experience of the psychological horror done perfectly. Of course, this goes beyond just a simple genre and has now been cemented as a gaming classic, I think. Now, I will not waste any more time. This is Mouthwashing, released in 2024. Don't actually drink this stuff. Let's dive in. What can always impress me is the small team that can make an amazing title. Swedish developers Wrong Organ is a group of 7 members who made this game. The repertoire of games is rather small, being a bit more recent. This is technically or technically not a follow-up to the team's debut title of How Fish is Made. This is an odd, surreal experience to say the least, but you don't need it to understand the story. It might be better to play post-Mouthwashing if you want to learn a bit more, but what that means I will mention near the end. A demo for Mouthwashing was released for owners of How Fish is Made, and then it had its full release on September 26, 2024. The popularity spike hit as the reviews were great and the online attention gripped many. It held one of those special YouTuber React type game where people love to watch their favorite creators play this game and, well, get traumatized. The story, concept, characters, setting, and detail in the game was all praised, and it helped for online discussion as well. Other than that, it had many nominations for best of categories in many different awards shows. Even now it has amassed a large fandom and we still see talk of it to this day, a lot of it. Of course, there's good reason for that. In fact, I will say this again too. Please, I really suggest you play this game for yourself. It was around 2 hours for me and it's really worth it. Experiencing it firsthand rather than a YouTuber playing it or me walking you through it is going to be the best way to digest this content. The way I will address the story is going to be a bit different from how the game addresses it. Abridged obviously as well, I want to cover the story for a refresher and people who still haven't played and ignored my instructions to play, because I'm sure there'll be at least one. Regardless, the game opens up with a ship crash and we are soon introduced to the characters of the story. The captain is Curly. He is our protagonist for the past sections of the game. The game switches between past and present to tie all plot points together. He's a well-respected captain with good standing and accolades in the company he works for. There's this laid-back side we get to see every now and then, but it seems it comes more humanizing and relatable to his subordinates. He's the captain of the ship of the Tulpar, an intergalactic freight ship employed by the megacorp Pony Express. The company does routine shipments across space and can take months or years in between shipping large quantities of supplies. Employed as well are 3 employees below him. Jimmy is the second in command. It's also our second protagonist, as he ends up having to take captain after the ship crash. He's a lot less respected, usually in a sour mood, and seems to hold a lengthy history with Curly that dates back to their time on Earth. Swansea is the mechanic of the ship. He's an old washed-up grumpy asshole who just seems to have an issue with any and everything. Anya is the medic of the ship, a nervous wreck. Her duties are to ensure her health is all good and keep everyone up to date on mental and physical screenings. There is a 5th character, and it's an intern, popped on last minute to tutor under Swansea. This is Daisuke. He is a college-aged frat boy type whose rich parents sent him here for some actual skills, so he won't suckle off their money forever, I could assume. He is goofy and aloof, but brings up the general mood over the transport time. Shit goes haywire as the crash dismembers Curly, leaving him in a near vegetative state. He lives only off painkillers and bandages, bloodied and unable to speak, only watching things with his last working eye. The game starts with Jimmy and the survivors trying to find supplies to survive just a bit longer. The ship is fine, but stuck on some random rock of a planet. Safety features kicked in, a bunch of foam to block any holes that might have sucked everyone out into space, but highly restricting access around the ship. Supplies were only made for the trip's length, so rationing has begun. The skip happens around 4 months into the crash, where the 4 are losing hope and a lot of supplies. The worst part is, they don't know why Curly crashed the ship. Yeah, Curly crashed the ship is what was contemplated as an act of insanity, of course. We get to live out the days leading up to the crash in Curly's POV, giving us better context and clues for the characters and the situation over the course of the game. Well, now time to rip the band-aid off. Last chance to back out and experiencing it after kind of laying the groundwork out for you. Time to spoil things. Alright, let's go into a more chronological order. The spark that ignited everything was a classified document faxed to Curly a few weeks prior to the drop-off point for the Tulpar. Long and short, the team is all laid off, going into more automatic, and everyone is dumped. Aside from Curly, his accolades will at least assure him a position upon return. The team is now out of a job. Curly is told to wait until near end of transport as he's burdened with breaking the news to the rest of the team, but he cracks not long after a birthday party celebration for him. The team did not take it well, pretty pissed off and distressed. Makes a bit of sense too. Anya is post-schooling, racked up in loans and debt. Her skills seem to be a bit lackluster as a nurse back on Earth, hence why she's working on a ship rather than something like a hospital. Swansea is old and out of shape, nearing his retirement age too. He'd be lucky to find a job post all this. Daisuke out of the group is probably fine, his parents' money will keep him afloat, but Jimmy also appears screwed. Jimmy feels a bit abandoned by Curly, but it also seems to be alluded to the fact that Jimmy has had trouble on Earth. Based on the game's text, it can be assumed that Jimmy only got this job based on Curly's recommendation and name, and he may have had some crimes on Earth or something to that regard that makes it very hard to get a job. So the team is soured a lot and only gets worse as it culminates in Anya telling Curly that she is pregnant. Father of the child seems to be Jimmy and heavily implied to be sexual assault. By the time it takes to get back on Earth would be way past the time of an ethical abortion for Anya, and maybe the child would even be born. Curly assures Anya that he will settle things and tried to find a way to reach out to Jimmy. That doesn't ever seem to happen, and on the day of the crash, Anya ends up telling Jimmy that she's expecting, and assumedly asks for him to take responsibility at the very least for the child that she's about to birth. This doesn't go well, leaving Anya even more distressed, and when Curly confronts Jimmy, it begins a mental battle as Jimmy warns Curly that if the news gets out, Curly will be axed too, letting this happen under his watch. No repercussions were taken against the alleged perpetrator, so all would be out of a job and maybe even worse. Instead, Curly could be remembered as a hero who fell into a tragic accident where the members of the Tulpar perished. Curly is the respectable captain, as he always was. This stops Curly dead in his tracks, Jimmy walking away and ensuring him that he will take care of things. Well, obviously Jimmy crashes the ship, disengaging autopilot for an assumed group suicide. In a last-ditch effort, Curly does steer the ship away from a head-on collision. This saves the ship, of course, and the other four, but the cockpit is so badly damaged, and when the crew pulls Curly out, well, this is all that's left of him. Now you fast travel 4 months, the food supply is close to running out, cannibalism was even suggested if all else fails. No help is coming, and tensions are worse once the crew breaks into the supply room. Now breaking into here would lead to termination, which is why they hesitated for so long, but at this point, they're all fucked regardless, so their hopes are crushed even further when the only thing in the storeroom for them is thousands and thousands of boxes of shitty mouthwash. No food, no tools, nothing to help. Just some mouthwash. Well, now hopes are near dead. Meds are running out, Swansea broke his sobriety and is getting drunk from the alcohol content in mouthwash. Daisuke does join but quits a lot quicker as he isn't up to the levels of Swansea. Believing Swansea is up to plotting as his hostility towards Jimmy is quite apparent. Jimmy sets his sight on trying to find out what he's plotting. While at a breaking point, Anya locks herself in the med room alone with Curly, stating that she should have done this long ago. Jimmy believes that Anya is going to try to kill Curly here, so he recruits Daisuke and abuses his good nature to assist in spiking Swansea's drink with rubbing alcohol, and they break into the med room via a maintenance duct. In the room where the duct starts, though, is a cryopod room. There are 4 capsules that are here that will let the team sleep up to 20 years in cryostasis for emergencies or assumed travel. A shock to the players as one is still perfectly active. Swansea did tell the crew at the beginning that they were all destroyed in the crash. Jimmy's worries become real as he believes that Swansea was lying to use the pod for his own safety, hence the guard dog approach to the pod room. Well, Daisuke is manipulated again into crawling into the shaft, which is broken but still crossable. Daisuke is grievously injured from the destroyed ship parts, but makes it to the med room and unlocks the door. He was too late though, but in the wrong way, as Anya is now laying dead, overdosed on the remaining painkillers that were meant for Curly. When Swansea awakens, Daisuke is dropping in health fast, and the only disinfectant left not used on Curly was used in that spiked drink earlier to knock out Swansea. Daisuke's wounds are too severe, so Swansea kills him with an axe to end the suffering. Now it's 2 people who absolutely hate each other. In a rage, Swansea chases down Jimmy with the axe, determined to kill him next. Jimmy was able to retrieve a lone gun stored for the captain in an emergency, and then get into a battle with Swansea. The gun wins, Swansea is captured, and monologues to Jimmy for his last words. A lot was said, but he reveals his plan to let everyone else die and save Daisuke was here, the only one who had any guaranteed future in all of this, as he grew to care for the idiot over the last few months. He was content with dying here and spits on Jimmy's morals as a way to end it. Jimmy shoots Swansea and holds a mock party with the crew, all now deceased, save for himself and Curly. Then he cuts off Curly's leg, forces him to consume himself before carrying him to the cryopod, placing Curly in it, reassuring that he is sorry and will fix everything. He leaves the view of the cryopod, turns it on, and shoots himself. The credits roll as Curly's vision fades into a cryosleep. Now that was a quick abridged version, but there's a lot to discuss here and theorize. There's many details surrounding the game, including the vague ending, are intentional and help create a layer of mystery and discussion to the game overall. Starting off, the structured story was great, and flipping back and forth to help create the suspense and creatively piece the puzzles together, it was awesome. The best part is undoubtedly the characters, and how they are written and portrayed. I'll start with going down the list, but I will go with the most integral piece, the shitbag Jimmy. Jimmy is probably the toughest character to dissect here, as during his segments, we see a lot of hallucinations. What is real and what is fake? I mean, the scene where Curly is on fire, talking to Jimmy in space, is clearly imaginary, but the puzzle and horror aspects are oftentimes depicted in trippy sequences where Jimmy is stuck running down endless hallways. Now, Jimmy is also clearly not mentally sane. No shit. The constant repeating actions of him saying he's going to fix things, for one, is completely odd. We never really get to see what he fully means by that. He crashes the ship after learning of Anya's pregnancy, and that was the trigger, of course, but it just didn't happen there. Now, early on, Jimmy and Curly hold a scene where, in the cockpit, Curly expresses his feeling of lost and stuck in the job, not really sure where to go on in his life. This is where it's heavily alluded to the fact that Jimmy struggled on Earth. Maybe it was crime, maybe he just simply sucked at jobs, or maybe he had lasting mental illnesses gone unchecked. Any one of these reasons could have halted a long-term job search, unless propped up by his friends and now boss. It does help why Jimmy selfishly explodes on learning of the firing. He seems highly codependent on Curly to a massive fault. Even in the mental breakdown, he still saves Curly and keeps him as the sole survivor. He continues to justify his actions as doing what's best for his friend. Even the cannibalism I see as giving him a last meal before cryosleep to ensure he survives, I would guess. The vagueness of him is really what makes things help me wonder about this character. We don't really know the real Jimmy. He's a heartless monster at the end of the day. I mean, what he did to Anya was enough, but not only that, she tries to make some sort of amends with him, and that gets dropped again. He manipulates Daisuke into his inevitable death. The relationship with Swansea was always hostile, but it only gets worse as he keeps convincing himself that Swansea is the villain of the story. I think it's rather cleverly done, though. The game starts off with Jimmy as a reluctant protagonist. The notion that Curly went insane and tried to kill everyone is here, while the second in command has to pick up the pieces and survive, a ex-friend of him. He's a grumpy jackass, but I thought it was believable in the beginning. It makes sense if your longtime friend almost killed you in a crash and you don't know why. Swansea is hostile towards Jimmy, but only Jimmy. It is clear in the flashbacks with Curly that their interactions are much different. Swansea grumbles and complains, but you can still feel the air of respect he has for Curly. Through Jimmy's eyes, there is nothing but hostility and hate. Of course, there is a clear point where you, the player, see what's really going on, but we keep playing as Jimmy and have Swansea painted as the villain. For Jimmy, one of my favorite aspects of his character was the hint so early on that Jimmy was not sane. It's one I hear no one really liked to talk about a whole lot because the meaning was masked by the absurdity in the scene. Jimmy's sexual attraction to horses. A routine mental exam were conducted by Anya to keep the team in check over the course of the journey. Curly realizes that Anya was skipping the exams as she was the test taker. This showed that Anya was struggling on her own, and Curly only realized it too late that she was mentally declining. The claim that is mentioned used as a lighthearted joke early on, but it also helps paint that Jimmy never took them seriously either, which is a huge red flag for what he was going to be doing. I feel some people took the comment a little bit too literal over the internet. I don't think it was ever intended that way, but used to show Jimmy as somewhat of a douche. Like he clearly looks down on Anya, and the total disdain for the exams is one of those ways. All of this has shown that Jimmy didn't care, yeah, but his mental state was probably never actually assessed. Curly's recommendation probably skipped some vital steps in that hiring process, I would assume, as they want people mentally sane to travel in small groups for a very, very long time. It keeps me thinking about what Jimmy saw and how he perceived everything, as it remains one of the biggest mysteries for me post-game. The last segment for Jimmy is a refusal to take responsibility. This is one of the core ideas of the game in and of itself. This is shown as his constant justifying of his horrid actions and the messed up savior complex he sorta has. The constant feeling of trying to save everyone while making every situation that much worse. Even when he tried to take everybody out in the crash, he ends up just cowering in the hallway, unable to face what he did. When the time comes, Curly runs up to him, looks down on him in shock, unable to have resolve in his actions. In the end, he even takes his own life. Many see that as a coward's way out and what feels to run away. He could have used the pod, but then he would have to face consequences. He would be tried for the horrid crimes he did. He cannot take responsibility. While they both took their own lives, Anya did it as a way to escape in such a terrible position where one only may survive in the end. Jimmy did it to simply escape. He justifies it as fixing things and saving his best friend Curly. Daisuke may be the character I have the least to say on, but I wouldn't say this is a bad thing at all. His character was oftentimes used to push the plot points of other character motivations. Tying this all into his arc was a huge corporate message the game has that I figured I'd bring up here. We hear very little about the Earth and the company, the Pony Express. Even so, the portrayal of a heartless corporation who gives blatantly zero fucks about the employees is here in all of its glory. The big comparison I made immediately when I played this game was Lethal Company, mainly because the two are two space conglomerates whose employees are nothing more than disposable waste to them, and they aren't really quiet about that fact. The whole do it for the company motto that Lethal Company had while you traverse deserted plains and die to the wildlife traps and entities that roam the facilities. Pony Express has similar values, the cold design of it all masked poorly with a goofy cartoon mascot in Polly. It's ironically sad. The messaging you see is so screwy as well as some of the rules they see. So many things lead to instant termination. They can only spend money on one birthday party on a crew per year. Or the infamous scene with Anya and Curly where she laments the lack of locks in the sleeping quarters versus the medical room. Curly thinks about that bluntly and responds, well, it's for safety. They don't care about the employees, they care about their product. Then there is the mouthwash itself. There's a lot to pull for symbolism here, but one for me that can tie in with the company itself is the fact that what they're potentially risking their lives for. Mouthwash is such a random and insignificant item. No one could argue its life-saving essentials. There are better dental care routines. It's the fact that there's only mouthwash here, in an entire sea of it, and nothing else. There could have at least had some contents here to save them or give them a little bit of time for supplies, but there's more mouthwash here than the eye can even see and comprehend. It really helps to deliver the blow that these people will not help them. The company doesn't care, they won't get help, and if anything, they will retrieve the mouthwash and leave their bodies to rot on the rock. Tying this all into Daisuke himself is the last minute addition they bring into the plot. It's played off for a bit of the carelessness on the Pony Express's part, but it also shows just a real gross negligence that they held. He is probably unpaid for being an intern, and with no cryopod, in the event there was a tragedy, Daisuke would be fucked. Really depressing to look into that. He is the goofiest character by far, but laments feeling like a failure to his parents. It kinda hits home with all that. The drunken ramblings of someone who isn't as they always portray. He's just a kid, trying to do his best in the world. His attitude is why Swansea ends up having a fatherly affection towards him and sought to have him be the one who survives. He's clearly the youngest out of the group, and as Jimmy said, he had a brighter future than the rest. Moving into the character who may be holding the title for the best written is Swansea. Why is it? He is simple. Simple to a fault. Most of Swansea as a character is shed on his final minutes of life. Faced with certain death, he lays his entire life out to his soon-be killer as a certain way to debase him. Debase him he does. Also goes for probably the best scene in the entire game. The cinema of this is absolutely stunning on the first playthrough. Swansea is nothing more than a piece of shit drunk. Most of his life was spent putting bottle after bottle down. A near-death experience helped him get back on his feet. To many in his circle, it was probably viewed as the time he turned his life around. Got a stable job in maintenance, settled with a family, and did all that many would deem as successful. Through it all, Swansea realized that the only time he truly felt happy in his life and alive was when he was too drunk to even stand. It's the best times of his life, he said. Swansea always knew this deep down, even though he continued to put on the persona of a hard-working blue-collar type. It hit eventually when the crash happened, and soon after, discovering the pod, only one of them had a shot at making it out alive. Being the reality of the situation hit only harder once his concerns were justified. Clearly, Swansea never liked or trusted Jimmy. It solidified in a resolve once Anya confided into him what Jimmy did to her after the crash. It was probably at this point that they planned to save the innocent Daisuke. Anya was probably feeling trapped and helpless with her pregnancy situation, worried for her potential child, and who knows what Jimmy would do if they survive. It seems clear that Anya planned to take her life for quite some time. Curly was in no shape to survive, and the meds were low, and really could do nothing on his own. Swansea himself was content with living his last days drinking his sorrows away until his demise. He was the oldest one out of the crew. Pretty sad concept, but these two were ready to die so Daisuke could make it alive and Jimmy could not get his good ending. Even if it was the smallest chance, Swansea took it. It was nice he actually admitted it in the end, but it was clear that when he killed Daisuke, that he only cared for him. It was the final straw he had, hence the murderous rage towards Jimmy soon after. If anything, he could kill Jimmy and ensure he never took that pod for himself. It's interesting too, because Jimmy never planned to take the pod, as far as we knew. So both Jimmy and Swansea thought they were taking it for selfish reasons. Swansea's character is a brutal depiction of a man whose last strand of compassion is used as he tries to save those who did nothing wrong. In the end, he spits all this out as his confession. He knows that he's a piece of shit and is ready to face the consequences of his actions. This is a double fuck you to Jimmy as a man who's incapable of taking responsibility or even seeing the error of his ways. Swansea as a character is one of the most straightforward but also complex. He holds his own as one of the strongest characters who is flawed but knows every single aspect of his flawed personality and isn't afraid to confront his demons. Never knew the extremely old grumpy asshat at the beginning would be an extremely emotionally charged character at the end of this. This scene still brings me to near tears. It's crazy. Anya is another tragic character who didn't deserve anything during the events of this game. A seemingly struggling nurse, one whose timid nature is clearly affecting her role as a caretaker. The skipping of her own exams leading to her extreme mental decline after she gets assaulted is really sad. The scene with her and Curly is extremely messed up, especially looking back on it post-game. The Locke's comment, the symbolism used in the dead pixel on the monitor, a small thing she cannot escape while Curly seems to miss or just simply ignore it. What's doubly sad is her actions during the game for me. Her interactions with Jimmy did confuse me a bit as I figured she'd be even more wary than she is. I think this could be a part of Jimmy and his delusions, of course, but I think her comment near the beginning of the game solidifies her character. She quotes, "I have to believe our worst moments don't make us monsters." This was said when defending Curly, as she seems to be the most in favor of keeping him alive as opposed to killing him or using him for potential food down the line. This cements her nursing character, as no matter who they are, she is determined to treat and save their life. Like they all get a second chance, right? At this point, it was directed at Curly, as everyone believed he crashed the ship to try to take everyone out. Of course, in the end, this comment was more directed at Jimmy than Curly. That's so damn sad to see. The denial she continued to try to hold back believed that there was some good left in Jimmy. She wanted and had to believe that there was some humanity in him. What kept her going? Curly seemed to be the closest confidant Anya had, and now he sits unable to act or even talk. I think that's why she killed herself in the medical room. She wanted to have control over death. She finally felt determined and locked herself in the room with the man she felt the most safest with. Now, we haven't gotten to Curly, who failed to act when faced with his friend committing a terrible act towards her. At first, I took this as a potential dig to Curly to watch as she helplessly overdosed in front of him, forced to do nothing like he did to her. This goes against her character, I think. The caring, sweet side she had as a nurse, you could also take it as a way to keep Curly away from Jimmy, or Jimmy away from her, to not let Daisuke and Swansea inevitably see her dead either. Having ill intent in her actions makes it harder to believe too. In the early game, she was working a lot with Jimmy, asking him to give meds to Curly, as she couldn't even bring herself to see Curly in pain. Maybe the saddest fact is when she dies and you play the scene as Jimmy, doesn't even react. He has a whole meltdown about how he could have saved Daisuke, but in the med room, her image is blurred. Maybe as a way to hold the tension as it wasn't officially revealed at that point. There was no reaction, no mention, nothing. He doesn't even view her in any regard. There was not even a sliver of pain over her death, unlike the others. Even when he killed Swansea, he exclaimed he would fix everything, like this would help. It's unbelievably screwy, and yeah, Anya deserved so much better as well. Last is Captain Curly. There's been some back and forth on how people perceive him. My stance has always been the same. Curly is a good-natured character. A character that had the best intention for everyone and what's best, but ultimately failed. Curly held a good standing with the crew, liked by all. Curly was focused a lot on himself and the future that he may have missed many issues in the background. The dead pixel comparison is back as he believes or ignores or doesn't even notice and just focuses on the bigger picture. As captain, he believes that to be his job. Through the interactions, it's clear Jimmy was in rough places and helped out by Curly, whatever their previous relationship held. I think he held similar ideas to Anya and wanted to believe his friend had something good in him. This maybe had him overlook signs before and after the ship departure. However long they knew each other, I think that didn't matter. His focus on running the ship had him overlook signs of Anya in distress. When she confides in him, he's clearly shocked. This scene too, Anya doesn't even need to say who the father is, she just repeats herself and yeah, it's really all he needed. Felt like deep down he truly knew, but didn't want to embrace the facts. I'm sure it's probably a terrible blow for your second in command and a longtime friend to be outed as an extremely terrible human being. It was something Curly clearly struggled to comprehend with in the beginning. His initial reaction was that he wanted to talk with Jimmy and try to work things out. He was probably in denial that this happened or was some sort of misunderstanding, and I think that makes sense in the moment. The talk was probably to clear a misconception or to see if he could take responsibility for his actions at the very least. Ultimately, he hesitated or simply didn't even act, or didn't even bother to condemn or reprimand Jimmy. Anya felt the need to do it herself, and well, it didn't end well. Jimmy takes advantage of Curly's insecurities and a weakness in that moment and uses it time to crash the ship. Of course, I think this is the part where Curly finally realizes Jimmy's true nature. He's cowering in the hall and Curly just yells, "What the fuck did you do?" He ends up saving the crew last second at the cost of, well, most of his body and functions. At the end of the game, Jimmy grabs a revolver that was under Curly's medical bed and unlocks it. We get a shot of Curly laughing. The most we see of him do really post-crash. At this point, Anya and Daisuke are dead, and to me, it was the moment where he sees the true monster in Jimmy. The laugh to me was a way to mock himself for the idiot he was. It's a scene that stuck out to me, and yeah, the symbolism isn't lost on all of it. Curly stood by as the captain, observing the crew and not acting in the time of need. His actions were a bit too late, and for it, he had to forcibly watch as the crew broke down, killing each other off one by one, watching the person he called a friend slowly devolve into a monster. While the punishment may not fit the crime for Curly in my opinion, it is the ironic fate that he held that makes this plot twist so good. The lone eye on Curly and the logo. It's always watching. It's always there. Curly is the sole survivor, watching as all the rest lie dead under his leadership. I could continue more, but this game and its story will truly stick as its disturbing and haunting events will be sticking with me for some time. Do you really want to play How Fish is Made? Many interpret it as fever dreams by Curly during the cryosleep portion, which is an interesting angle too, as it's especially post mouthwashing if you play it. A narrative masterpiece that has different experiences after each playthrough. So many scenes hit different with the full context of it. Yeah, it lacks a lot of gameplay or hell, even really super scary moments. There are some usually in form of Jimmy straight tripping. It's a psychological thriller though, and I think it can be very real, which is definitely one of the most scary parts about it. I mean, if you really think about it, it still hits many classical horror tropes. Having 4 survivors on board a crashed spaceship with a monster sounds very horror tropey to me. It hits all the marks of an intriguing story. I bring oftentimes why I play video games, and to be honest, it usually boils down to just feeling something. This emotional gut punch of a story will stick with me just as much as a game that invokes that childhood joy or just pure fun. This is a game that haunts and disturbs the player with many aspects. Its material is very human, very real, very visceral, and it very rarely goes for pure shock. There's a factor to deliver something, and that's what I really like about it. I may not be always scared, but god damn it, I'm truly scarred by this experience. Well, fucking done.